Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name's Eric, this is Fatal RPM, and in today's video, we're gonna be working on the 335. So that means we're gonna have to go ahead, get the tops back on the 300ZX and get it moved out. But we all know that starts off with a nice cold start from the Z. So let me go ahead, get the tops on, get it started up, and we'll get it out of here. All right, so now that we finally got the 335 in here, got the 300ZX moved outside, what we're actually going to be getting done today here is going to be what's here in the back seat, along with what's in this box here. And also in this video, but on another day, we're also going to get the front part of the suspension finally installed on the 335, so we'll finally be on all air suspension. But what we have to do is on this wheel here. And let me get this box open here and explain to you exactly what the issue is. So the problem we had, I really hope this thing isn't all banged up on the inside, but was in the rear part of the suspension. I may have mentioned it in the video where I installed it, but one of the bolts on the actual knuckle well, I thought it was stripped out. However, it was not stripped out. It was the knuckle that was actually stripped out, which honestly just kind of baffled me. But so what we have here, oh God, is an all new spindle. It looks like the shield here is a little bent up, but I mean, nothing a hammer can't fix. You might ask, why we need a new spindle? Let's get the car jacked up and I'll show you exactly why. So, actually misspoke in the previous clip, and I also already loosened these so that I'm able to talk over the impact wrench, but I explained why we need a new spindle, and the reason why I got a used one over a new one is because of the simple fact that used spindles or knuckles generally have their wheel bearings already attached, and unlike the front, these rears are press fit because the fronts are bolt-ons. You can actually bolt on, you can buy a new wheel bearing and bolt it on, at least from what I've seen. I don't know if it's like that on the 335s, but what we got to do is we need to disconnect I think the last thing I'm going to do is disconnect the handbrake, disconnect the handbrake, because we got to go ahead, take this all off here. This is all really simple. If you know how to change brakes, there's just two, I think they're 5 or 6 mil Allens that go into here. You can slide those off. And actually, I'm probably not even going to take the caliper off of the rotor. I'm probably just going to take the whole mount off, which is, I think they're 15 or 16 bolts on the back of the knuckle here, and I can slide this off. And then after I do that, let me make sure this rotates. Yeah, it does. Okay. And then after we do that, I can go ahead and slide off the rotor, and then we'll unbolt everything back here. So this is going to be a relatively straightforward thing. I'm just going to have to reconnect the handbrake. The handbrake actually looks like it's in better condition on the new one. And from what I saw, the new one is about 89, has about 89,000 miles on the knuckle itself. So we should be good, or on the car that it came off of. I've already showed most of this here when I did the rear suspension already, but I know I did fail to show a lot of it. So what I will show you here is this is how we have the rear suspension set up. We have the airlift bags with their control arm here and their lower control arm. I don't know, I wouldn't really consider that to be a control arm, but I mean, hey, it's whatever. But we have that along with M3 struts. So this goes through the wheel well, through one of the vents in the trunk into the CVT. So that's how we have this all set up. So let me go ahead, get this all torn apart. It's gonna be relatively simple. We also have a little Allen that we have to unscrew so we can slide the rotor off. But once we do that, everything will look like that. So, oh God. You might be wondering, why is the axle still on here? That is because I live on like the East Coast, like just close enough for things to get rusty. And I don't know if you've ever seen it, but that is what my axle nut looks like. It's basically non-existent. And I do not want to fight with that. So I'd rather spend just about 200 bucks on a new axle, which we have sitting inside of the car. I just gotta finish getting these bolts out, and then we can install the axle. After we install the axle, then we can reinstall the spindle. And just so you guys can see, this here is the hole that has gotten stripped out. You can actually kind of see the metal flake right there where that little shiny part is. I don't know why, but this GoPro does not focus. So that's what was messed up on this one. So that's why we had to get a whole new spindle. And as you can see, all the threads are there. None of them are missing. And that one, and that one are the only threaded holes. So we're all good as far as the threads on this guy goes. So let's go ahead, get this guy on there. All right, so now we got the axle in, we got everything buttoned up here. We just need to get the rotor on, then we can get the caliper on. Actually, let me put the studs on now, make my life a little bit easier. I ran into one issue with the handbrake wire, and I hope that this will go on here. I don't know though, honestly, I just don't. But I guess we'll find out here in like 5 seconds. All right, moment of truth, will it sit back? It will not. All right, so it is max, as small as it's gonna get. Let's see. Still not going on. Well, that means I'm just gonna get a new, I'm gonna have to get a new handbrake cable, but we're just going to remove this in here so that we don't have to deal with it. And I'll come back to it at a later date. All right, handbrake's out. Now we can just slide on the rotor. So no handbrake on the driver's side rear. That's safe, right? I think so. Yeah. So it looks like we're pretty much done here for today. We'll come back tomorrow or the day after, but it will be a couple seconds for you, and start the install of the front part of the airless suspension. So I'll see you in half a second. All right, so we're back here on day 2, and what we're gonna have to start with is we gotta get the side skirts off and also jack up the back so that I can run the airlines, because I only have 3 jack stands and I don't want to leave the car just up on the jacks. So since I can't actually get enough height to be able to get behind the wheel here, I'm gonna have to pull the wheel, or maybe once I jack it up, I'll have enough space. But I'm going to be running the airline for the fronts the same way that I did the rears. The only difference is instead of stopping here, we're going to go through the wheel well entirely and then run under the side skirt all the way through to the front and come out in the wheel well here. So with that all being said, let me go ahead, get the back jacked up. I actually got to open the garage door again. And once we get that jacked up, I'll be able to get in the trunk and start running these airlines. So let's go. All right, so once you get the side skirts off, what we'll be looking at is this. You got 10 plastic T30 screws that you have to get off, and the side skirt unclips from the body once you get those all off. I am missing one, so that's the reason why I have 9 there instead of 10. But once we get that off, we'll have a nice flat plane that we'll be able to put the little adhesive pads that I used in the back of the trunk to hold some of the airline to the body inside, and we'll just zip tie it down so that it's not bumping around inside when we're going down the road. So let me get the car jacked up and we'll go ahead. If we don't have to pull the wheel, we won't, but we'll start running these airlines. All right, so once we get the wheel off, what we're going to want to do is we're going to take off, I think there's 5 of them, 10 mil screws, or nuts. They are made of plastic, so careful with power tools putting them back on, but you got 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. Once you get those out, you can pull down on this little plastic piece under here, because this has 2 little holes, or the wheel well has 2 holes on it. This plastic piece has teeth in it. Oh, I guess I don't have the plastic piece on this side. There's usually a plastic piece that sits right here, and it will have these teeth going through the wheel well here to hold it in place. But we want to get these 5 bolts out, and we're not actually going to be pulling out the wheel well. All we're going to be doing is just pulling it back here in the back so that we're able to fish the airline around the wheel well and up through the hole. And once we get that, we'll be able to have a clear view, because you can also take out these 2 screws. There's actually supposed to be 3, but this one wouldn't come out for me, so yeah. But take out these 2 screws, and then you'll be able to pull this forward, and you'll be able to see this hole here and fish it up through, because we're going to want to fish it up into it, which is a little bit harder than fishing it down, but it saves a lot more time fishing it, because you don't have to fish 13, 14 feet of line. You just got to fish like 3 or 4. So let's go ahead, get this wheel well unbolted, and get the line ran in the trunk. Now, before we run this line into the trunk, what we're going to want to do is tape off the end here so that we actually don't get a whole bunch of dirt or anything. It's super dirty back here, so I'm just going to use a little bit of masking tape on the edge, give myself a little bit of space. So we got that on there, all taped off. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start on this end here and just kind of get this into the shape that I need it, which is going to be with it facing like this, because essentially, or with a circle like that. And the reason why is because when I go into the trunk, I want it to be able to do a 180 without getting a full like bend in it, and be able to go to the tank sitting right here, because we got that free spot open. And actually the wheel well's coming out. I didn't want to take it out, but it just fell out by itself, so we'll just take it out. Keep hitting it on the car. I'm just going to go up in here and stick this guy through one of the holes. Now, I went ahead and I got the first one down. This one is the hardest one to get because you got to get the line to agree with you, but I have it ran all the way through. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to straighten this out, run it down the body until we get to the engine bay, and I'm going to lay the excess in the engine bay until we get the rear back on the ground and the front up. So give me like 5 minutes. So here we got everything all zip tied. Now I just remembered the reason why I turned the camera back on is because I didn't actually show you guys what I was using. So it's these little guys here, little pads with like 3M foam, adhesive foam on the back. And they have these little holes here on the side for you to go ahead and stick the zip ties through. And it's going to go ahead and hold this guy in here. So even once we go off bumps, I got to clip the tails, but when we go over bumps and stuff, I won't have to really worry. And I can duck this back in this hole here and go up into the wheel well right to where we are. And you can see we have a whole bunch of excess here. Well, like about 3 or 4 feet of excess. I actually had to buy this because when we finished the rears, I realized we weren't going to have enough line to run both sides because this is the original, what's left of the original. As you can see, we have it run down this side as well. So now that we have everything zip tied up, let me go ahead, put the wheels back on and drop the car. It'll be good. So again, 5 minutes. So definitely 5 minutes later, not hours. But now we got the front jacked up and I did the other side already. And turns out for all-wheel drive, you gotta kind of deviate from the instructions. Now, I'm by no means a professional, so do this at your own risk. That's all I can say. However, what I had noticed is that whenever you get this, you get the strut, you also get a tie rod as well as the nuts for the strut and a dampener adjuster. But where we have to deviate is where this goes in and using this. We're not using this, and this is usually an alignment pin. However, it is very, very, very far off of where it needs to actually be. So what do I mean by that? I mean this. The standard one kind of goes, it's perpendicular to the car. But whenever you use this alignment pin, if you can already tell, where that goes in is right in between the bolt here, where the lower part separates to allow this to drop down, and that is right there. So with that facing that way, it's on the complete opposite side. Yes, I made sure that this is the right side. This one is for the left, as you can see there, 357. We run over here, check the instructions. 357 is the left. So you can see right there. Left, 357. That's how it's supposed to be, unless it was incorrectly labeled, which if it was, that sucks. But even if it wasn't, still wouldn't make any sense, because if you were to put this on the other side, actually that would make more sense. If you were to put this on the other side, it would be on the right side. But then again, this would be sticking out the front. And we're not going to be using this because this is an inch too short, even maxed out. And this one's an inch too long. But you might ask, how do we figure that out if this is an inch too long? You just jack up the suspension after you get it installed. And you might be asking yourself, well, why didn't you just extend this an inch? That's because this has been put on with the might of a god and I cannot get it off. The little tool that they gave me to release this locking collar, it's not working. I even tried it with the arm to my jack. It was not coming off. I tried it on both. I tried it with the arm of the jack on the other side because there's nowhere for me to really put this. I don't have a vise or anything, so I can't put it in anything. But doing this is going to be super easy. We already have this ran. You legit have to take off 2 screws, or actually 3 screws, to get this to where it needs to be. There's one here, there's one under as well to get this plastic piece off, and then there's this 10 one here. These 2 are 8s, this one's a 10. Pull this guy back and we'll put it in place. Once we do that, we'll cut it when we have everything here in place to where it needs to be. This one here is a 16 on this side, and a 17 on the other side. And we're just going to be unbolting this, and then we're going to misalign this. This one here is an 18. We just take that out, use the hammer, tap it down a little bit. Make sure to get these guys out of the way first. We're definitely going to want to hit this up with a wire brush real quick though, and some PB Blaster, because those threads are rough. And then we'll take these bolts out here, which I think are 12s, then an E14 or E12, and then an E18 to loosen that up so that we can move this out of the way like that. And the one thing you want to do, just keep your alignment, because these do have oval holes. Go ahead and draw a circle around them with either a marker or a paint pen or something. And these screws that come with that, or the bolts, no, the nuts that come with that are a little bit smaller, but you can sit them perfectly in the center, relatively easy. And then what you do is you go ahead and jack up the wheel to get it into place, tighten down the nut, tighten down those nuts. Well, these will be tightened. Tighten down that nut, put all the plastics back, and you're done. So let's do that right now.
I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy. It's too easy. I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy. Too easy. It's too easy. I've been there, done it, seen it. Boy, all that like Keenan. Still got crack, they fiendin'. Flow still hot like Phoenix. Shine so bright, I'm gleaming. This off top, I'm tweaking. Fresh out the rat like Neiman. And I'm still tryna fight my demons. Cause we all gotta act like Tina. That's why I gotta ride with the Nina. Outside, it's a war going on. Make me put my hands on my head like the Macarena. They want you walking on board like Kima. And give an F to you like John Cena. Putting blood on the brand new Beamer. Tryna earn 8 stripes like Adidas. You get cold when you ride with the heater. It'll turn you to a dog like a keto. And expose to a cat like a cheetah. They smoke my partner like reefer. Dímelo porque o no entiendo. Mi gente must really need Jesus. They shed real blood. I never seen the crypt and I believe it. It's too easy. Too easy. I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy. It's too easy. I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy. It's too easy. I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy. It's too easy. It's too easy. I've been there, done it, seen it. Y'all just talk, don't live it. And just took that route that's seen it. And I'm so outspoken like Reason. Jimmy Neutron, boy, young jeans. And I'm a self-made man out of Sweden. And it's still off top, I'm tweaking. But I still gotta fight my demons. I ain't no good, I'm evil. I ain't been clean since Eden. It's a war going on outside. Make you put your hands on your head like the Macarena. That's why I gotta watch my demeanor. You know they locking up blacks and Latinos. It's the same old game, ain't nothing really changed but the mileage on the meter of the Beamer. You get cold when you ride with the heater. It'll turn you to a dog like a keto. And expose to a cat like a cheetah. They smoke my partner like reefer. Dímelo porque o no entiendo. Mi gente must really need Jesus. He shed real blood. I never seen the crypt and I believe.
All right, so now that everything is plumbed up officially, we can now go ahead and test the system here. Make sure we have enough pressure. We're on the left side here, so. Oh, come on. Come on. There you go. Or not to make sure we have enough pressure, and make sure we don't have any leaks. So I'm not hearing anything. Let's go ahead and grab the water jug, wherever I put that. This is soapy water here, so should get some bubbles. If it is, but it isn't. So I guess we're good. So no leaks up front, which is amazing. Everything is completely buttoned up, so all I need to do is this has been tightened all the way down. So is this guy. All I need to do now is put on the wheel and drop the car, and we should be good. The one thing I do think, though, is that this is going to restrict my steering quite a bit. I'm pretty sure it's going to put a lot more weight on it, and it's going to be a much heavier wheel, which is unfortunate, but we'll see. Hopefully it doesn't break my steering rack. If it seems too tough, and if it sounds like my power steering pump is working a bit too hard, I will go in and shorten that up a little bit. What I do think I am going to do, however, is even though this would be facing outward, I think I'm gonna like zip tie it to the body and flip these shocks. Because now that I think about it, this is a lot more important. You can see it already fell. This is a lot more important than just it being like aligned. That's legit going to keep this strut from turning, which is something this strut does. So yeah, this is it's going to need to be fixed. There's only about a half an inch of it that's not in there, as you can see, like right there. So not very much, legit like a fingertips amount. So gonna go ahead, drop the car. I'll go through the steering, make sure everything's good, and we should be good. All right, so I just fired up the car. Everything looks good as far as the steering. It's still like not super heavy, nice and light, at least in the air, but I suspected it to be a little heavier, but it's not. So we're all good there. I need to have my phone on standby because I already know I don't have enough air in these bags to keep this thing from hitting the ground. But let's let's see. It's hard to do with one hand. I don't want it to come smashing down though, because I know when it does, I'm gonna need to contact somebody to help me out with actually adjusting these, because it's just not working. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, well, that's that. Actually, since this is the first time, what I was trying to say was, since it's the first time that we have the car completely on air, let's see what it looks like aired out. So we got the app here. Just wait for it to connect because it's still red. There it goes. Let's air out. Unless it doesn't want to do it. Just guess we got to spam it. All right, so that's the front aired out. That's the back. It's looking pretty nice. It looked for some reason like the right side higher. It is, for whatever reason. Interesting. It's funny because when I measured it, both the strut, actually no, it's not any higher. That's just how this looks. The funny thing is, if I raised up the rear a little bit, I could actually drive on this. I mean, I'm not, but I could. All right, as always, I want to thank everybody for watching. If you like the video, go ahead and like it down below. Also, if you want to see any more stuff coming from me with my 335 or my 300ZX, not C, Z as in Z, go ahead and hit the subscribe button as well as the bell icon right next to it so you do get notified whenever I drop that new video. But as always, I want to thank you again for watching. Peace out, and I'll see you in the next one.